Hare Krishna. So, welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam class of ISKCON Portland. Thank you so much for joining. Today we will be covering, we are still in the chapter 11, where Lord Krishna returns to Dwaraka from Hastinapur. And before starting, let us chant the Mangalacharan prayers. So I will share my screen. And ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमा ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। Okay, now let's recite the invocation verses for Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can all, I don't need to share, we can repeat. नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। So, welcome again to the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Sorry, we are running a little bit late. I was trying to join the call, took some time. We are on verse number 21. So I will share this verse. We will recite this, and devotees can also recite if they would like. Sec. Oh, come on. Oh. So this is the verse that we will be reciting. So let me open it up on my iPad here. So I will recite it a couple of times, and then devotees can take turns to recite if they would so desire. भगवांस्तत्र बन्धूनां पौराणाम् अनुवर्तिनां यथा विद्य उपसंगम्य सर्वेषां मानम् आदधे. भगवांस्तत्र बन्धूनां पौराणाम् अनुवर्तिनां यथा विद्य उपसंगम्य सर्वेषां मानम् आदधे. One more time. Bhagavanstātra bandhūnām paurāణām anuvartinām yatha vidya upasangamya sarvesham manam adadhe. So fairly simple sort of syllables and words in this verse. Would anybody like to recite?
We can give it a try, Prabhu. Bhagavanstatra bandhunam pauranam anuvartinam yatha vidyupasangamya sarvesham manam adadhe. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Bhagavansatra bandhunam pauranam anuvartinam yatha vidhi upasangamya sarvesham manam adate.
Thanks, Mataji. Thanks a lot.
I can try, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Bhagavan Shatatra Bandhunam Puranam Anuvartinam Yatha Vidhi Upasangamya Sarvesham Manam Adate.
Thank you. Very nice.
I can try, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bhagwanam Tatra Bandhunam Pauranam Anuvartinam Yatha Vidhi Upasangamya Sarvesham Manam Adhate.
Yes, thanks, Mataji. That's very nice. Okay, shall we move on? Okay, we will move on. So I will repeat the word by word translation. Bhagavan, Shri Krishna, personality of Godhead. Tatra, in that place. Bandhunam, of the friends. Pauranam, of the citizens. Anuvartinam, those who approached him to receive and welcome. Yatha vidhi, as it behooves. Upasangamya, going nearer. Sarvesham, for each and every one. Manam, honor and respects. Adadhe, offered. Translation. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, approached them and offered due honor and respect to each and every of the friends, relatives, citizens, and all others who came to receive and welcome him. So, very, very beautiful verse. So, before we go into the verse itself or the purport and discussion, I just want to do the word by word understanding of each line. Bhagavans tatra bandhunam. And here what is happening is Lord Shri Krishna has returned to Dwarka, and the citizens of all the citizens, nobody is left out, nobody is excluded, or nobody is sitting home, not even one citizen. Everybody is out there to jubilantly receive Lord Krishna back to Dwarka. And in the previous 20 verses, we have seen how all the citizens have welcomed back Lord Krishna, how they decorated the city, cleaned the city, did so much, and wonderful welcome of Lord Krishna. Now Lord Krishna is reciprocating with the citizens. So this is the sort of first, this is the beginning of the reciprocation. So Bhagavam Tatra Bandhunam. So Bandhunam is being called as all the people that were assembled to receive Lord Krishna. They are Bandhunam. In that place, Tatra, what did Bhagavan do? Or first, to whom? These Bandhunam, who are the Bandhunams? Pauranam Anuvartinam. That those people or those citizens of Dwarka who had come to receive and welcome Lord Krishna, what did the Lord do? He went near them, upasangamya, sangha. He went to associate with them, so to say. Sangha means associate, but sangha means he went close to them. Yatha vidhi. Vidhi means according to, as it should be done. They were showing their love. So it is not a matter of duty that Lord Krishna is doing this. It is as it should be done or as is obvious to be done in a situation of love between the Lord and his devotees. He approached them, and sarvesham, each and every one, to the Lord, he didn't leave out anyone, each and every one, manam adadhe. He also offered his man, his respect, his honor and respect to all those citizens. So that is the meaning of the verse. So the translation by Srila Prabhupada once again is, Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, approached them, that is upasangamya, and offered adadhe, due honor and respect, manam, to each and every one of the friends, sarvesham, friends, relatives, citizens. These are the pauranam, to all these citizens, relatives and friends, and all others, bandhunam and pauranam, all others who came to receive and welcome him, anuvartinam, and welcome him to Bhagavan, wanted to welcome Bhagavans. So this is the translation of the verse. Let us read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is neither impersonal nor an inert object, unable to reciprocate the feelings of his devotees. Give me 1 second. I need to do something real quick and I'll be back. 1 sec. Purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is neither impersonal nor an inert object, unable to reciprocate the feelings of his devotees. Here the word yatha vidhi, or just as it behooves, is significant. He reciprocates just as it behooves with different types of admirers and devotees. Of course, the pure devotees are of one type only because they have no other object for service but the Lord, and therefore the Lord also reciprocates with such pure devotees just as it behooves. Namely, he is always attentive to all matters of his pure devotees. There are others who designate him as impersonal, and so the Lord also does not take any personal interest. He satisfies everyone in terms of one's development of spiritual consciousness, and a sample of such reciprocation is exhibited here with his different welcomers. So was there anybody impersonal in that welcomer, in that body of those who were welcoming? No, they weren't welcoming someone impersonal. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been there. They could have welcomed him sitting in their homes, in their mind. Because they were all present there, they were welcoming the personal Lord Sri Krishna. And there was nobody impersonal there, but as the Lord says, that he reciprocates accordingly to those who surrender to him. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajame aham. So the impersonalists who worship the Lord in their impersonal, in his impersonal, or worship his impersonal form, the Lord also does not take personal interest through a long process of worship. They are able to ultimately come to the personal realization and then attain the Lord. So during their process of impersonal realization, they are pretty much on their own. The Lord does not take personal interest. So in this verse and in this purport, there are two distinct points that are coming out. In the verse, there are a couple of very important points that come, that the Lord personally offered his respect, man, to each and every one of his devotees who were present there, Sarvesham. And this includes all kinds of people. So some devotee will cover the next verse next week, but I just wanted to mention it here, all kinds of devotees. So just kind of touch upon the next verse. It says here, the Almighty Lord greeted everyone present by bowing his head, exchanging greetings, embracing hands, embracing, shaking hands, looking and smiling, giving assurances and awarding benedictions, even to the lowest in rank. So this is the point, that the Lord was reciprocating even to the lowest person present there. So he did not leave out anyone, and that is the meaning of Sarvesham. So the Lord does not forget even the tiniest of his devotees. We may think that there are so many billions and billions of people, or trillions and zillions of living entities in this whole universe. How does the Lord really care about, or is he able to care about me? Does he have the capacity to care about me, to look at my problems, to save me? The Lord has the capacity to look at every living entity and interact personally with every living entity. There is absolutely no doubt about this. He is not like us, where we can only deal with 10 or 20 people or 15 people. We have no capacity to deal with millions of people at the same time personally. Nobody has, but the Lord can. So that is one important point coming out here. The other important point, Sarvesham, which is kind of reflecting on the next verse, is that it does not matter or who, or your material qualities do not matter. All that matters is the spiritual or the devotional qualities of a devotee. We saw all kinds of people by profession, the workers, the, whoever, all classes of workers. Even we saw prostitutes, which we may consider as, low class, citizens. The Lord welcomed everyone. Here it is written, everyone who was present. In the next verse, it says that everyone who was present. If you see here, everyone present, by bowing his head, exchanging greetings, embracing, shaking hands. So here, even though, these two chapters, the Lord leaving Hastinapur and entering Dwarka, are just seeming like a description of a scene. It is not a description of a scene. It is giving us a view into the mentality of the devotees, and more importantly, a direct view into the mentality of the Lord. And therefore, these chapters are very important, because if you want to understand who the Lord is, yes, we can understand the Lord through the Vedas and through all the deep literatures, Vedic literatures. But here, through his simple actions, we can also understand the Lord. Like I was hearing a class yesterday, and the devotee was mentioning, and this class was obviously on YouTube, that, oh, this is recorded on YouTube, and yes, you can get to know me on YouTube, but there is no substitute to personal knowing one personally. So in the same way, knowing the Lord through the Vedas is one thing, but knowing the Lord through these activities that he does in his day-to-day life, very simple activities, makes us or brings us much closer to the Lord, makes us know the Lord more deeply. And that is why this chapter is so important, because we get an idea about the direct internal thinking process, his actions in very simple cases of the Lord. So how he was interacting with everyone, each and every one of those that were present there. So that is one point. And this is coming directly from the verse. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada has very, very beautifully brought out another point, which is that all this action or activity that is going on right now shows us that the Lord is a person. That is primarily, or his primary identity is a person. Yes, he has an impersonal aspect as well, but that is not the primary, the highest or the primary understanding. The primary understanding is that the Lord is a person, because a person only can do all these things. It's pretty obvious. It cannot be impersonal. So, and the biggest problem in impersonality is that there is no reciprocation, or there is no possibility of reciprocation. So as a person, the Lord reciprocates with his devotees, and that is when the devotees are elated, are able to enjoy, are able to be in this relationship with the Lord. I personally feel that when there is reciprocation, then my faith and my confidence in this process in the Lord, of course, I have very little faith, long way to go, but this reciprocation aspect, and I do not have any personal reciprocation of the Lord, but through his devotees, through this whole process, the reciprocation that I receive is so wonderful that it keeps me fixed on this path, that yes, this path is very nice, very enjoyable, and it is the right path on which I am to reach the Lord. So the reciprocation aspect is so important, and the Lord is demonstrating the reciprocation aspect very beautifully over here. So the Lord is a person, and one of the important aspects of being a person is reciprocation. Now, there are several places I thought in the Bhagavad Gita I would mention that the Lord talks about. Now, Bhagavad Gita is direct Vani of Lord Krishna. So the Lord is directly speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, but for all of us. So there are so many places where the Lord speaks about his devotees. My devotees do this, my devotees do that. So he's not speaking only to Arjuna. If it was only to Arjuna, he would have given a very personal instruction. So he would have, in the case of Shukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, we can realize it a little better, because Shukadev Goswami is pretty much giving a seminar to a large audience, but as if he is talking to only Parikshit Maharaj. He is the only one asking questions and he is responding. But it is obvious from the setting that everybody else is also listening. Bhagavad Gita is very much the same, just that there is no large audience there. Of course, there is Sanjay who is listening, and Dhritarashtra also is listening, and Arjuna is listening. But we are all the audience of Bhagavad Gita as well. And that is why the Lord speaks like a seminar. Otherwise, it would have been a very private conversation between the Lord and Arjuna. So it's more like a seminar to all of us. And there the Lord at several places talks about reciprocation. Of course, there is the ye yatha mam prapadyante, but the Chaturshloki verse is a very classic example of reciprocation of between the Lord and his devotees. So in the Chaturshloki verse, let me open that up and show. The first two verses, aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaah. Where is that? Chapter 10. And mad chittah madgatah prana. I'll show Devanagari because I like Devanagari. And it can all fit in one screen. Very nice. So the first two verses are what the devotee does. So what does the devotee do? Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattaha sarvam pravartate. So this is what the devotee is doing, that he is iti matva. This is the important word. This is the verb in the sentence. Iti matva, thinking like this, or assuming, or not assuming, thinking or believing, you can say believing like this. Iti matva. How believing? That my Lord, aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate, that from my Lord everything comes. So like this he is thinking, and then what is he doing? What is his action? Bhajante mam. He is doing my bhajan. Buddha bhava samanvita, with lot of love and devotion he is doing my bhajan. So this is definitely an activity of a devotee that is being mentioned here. Then the next verse is also an activity of the devotee, activity and mentality both. So the first one, 8th verse, is the mentality of a devotee, but both are on the part of a devotee. The 8th verse is the mentality of a devotee, how he is thinking, or what is his bhava. And 9th verse is what he actually does. Also there is little bhava, which is mad chitta mad gatah prana. That is who he is, always keeping me in his chitta, in his mind, mad gatah prana, making me the goal of his prana, of his life. What he does, bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam. So among each other, they are doing my katha, singing my katha, associating with each other. And like this, they are very happy. Tushyanticha ramanticha. So they are very, very happy in this process. So the 8th and 9th verse is devotees thinking, or his bhava, his devotee's nature, and what their activities are. Then there is reciprocation by the Lord. 10th and 11th is reciprocation by the Lord. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamapayantite. So 10th verse, first line is still continuing on the devotees, but the Lord is saying to such devotees who are doing bhajatam priti purvakam, with a lot of love, they are doing my bhajan with a lot of determination. Satata yuktanam. What the Lord does? Dadami buddhi yogam tam. To them I give them the intelligence. Yena mam upayantite. How to come to me. Mam upayanti. How to achieve me, how to reach me. I give them the intelligence. I show them the path. How? By showing them how to show the path? Through their heart. It is not that he will personally come. In Kali Yuga, the Lord may not personally come to, like Arjuna, and lead you back to, or like Garuda, Gajendra. The Lord comes on Garuda and personally takes Gajendra and all that. Not in that way, but through the heart. He will light the lamp of knowledge. Tesham evam anukampartham aham ajnanajam tamaha. So I will remove the ajnana. Nashayatma atma bhavastho jnana deepena bhasvata. So by lighting the lamp of knowledge in the heart, jnana deep, the lamp of knowledge in the heart of the devotee, the ajnana is destroyed, nashayama, and the devotee becomes enlightened. He gets the intelligence, the Dami Buddhi Yogam, to understand that knowledge, and then he can come to me. So this is the Lord's reciprocation to his devotees. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. To such devotees, this is what the Lord does. So the Lord is saying here how he reciprocates with his devotees. So this is a very beautiful exchange. 8-9 is one direction, 10-11 is the other direction. Another beautiful exchange we see in chapter 12, which we were just reading in our other setting, which is 6 and 7. So here, and these two verses are combined, and the 6th verse is what the devotee does, and the 7th verse is what the Lord does. So again, you will see when the Lord does tesham, this word is coming, tesham means to those people. So this is indicative of the reciprocation starting. So what do the devotees do? Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparah ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate. That all their work, sarvani karmani, surrendering to me, sanyasya matparah, ananyenaiva, no other, with no other attention, no other focus, single focused, yogena mam dhyayanta upasate. With single focused attention, they are just doing my bhajan, my dhyan, my upasana. They are worshipping me, they are thinking of me, they are doing my bhajan. So this is the quality of a pure devotee. And what does the Lord do in return? Tesham aham samudharta mrityu sansara sagarat. I am the samudharta, I am the deliverer from what? Mrityu sansara sagar. And that too very quickly, na chirat partha, mai aveshita chetasam. So very quickly the Lord delivers them from this mrityu samsara sagar. So this is his reciprocation. So very nicely we see how the Lord is reciprocating with his devotees. When the devotees are showing so much love, they're always keeping the Lord in their minds, in their hearts. And the Lord is always also caring for the devotees, taking care for their needs. Yoga kshemam vahamyaham. Even that verse actually is a reciprocation. So chapter 9, if we see 9.22. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janah paryupasate. So the first line is what the devotees do. Ananya, single pointed, ananya, no other. Chintayanto mam, always thinking of me. Ye jana paryupasate. These people are always doing my worship, my bhajan. What does tesham? Again the word. So you can Google or search for tesham. Wherever tesham comes, you can see there should be a 99% chances there that there will be reciprocation. Tesham nitya abhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. These people who are nitya abhiyuktanam, who are always engaged in my devotion, yogakshemam vahami aham. I provide what they lack and I carry what they have. So all this the Lord is showing his reciprocation for his devotees. He does not ever forget even the smallest, tiniest of his devotees. So we should, this is not just theory. We should believe in it. We should have firm faith in this. We should completely believe this to the core of our heart that this is true. And then what else is needed? There is no insurance policy needed. We should hang on to this promise, this belief, and with full heart we should perform Krishna Bhakti. With full heart we should serve the Lord in whatever capacity, with no ulterior motives, no hidden agenda, no anything, no desire for any upadhi or any sarva upadhir vinirmuktam. With that mood, we should just to serve the Lord, to make only the Lord happy. And of course, that includes by making the Lord happy, the whole universe will be satisfied. So we should not have any hidden agenda. We should not have any, with just a single focused, ananyena, no other motive, no other intention. We should just serve the Lord. And then the Lord will just, carry our life on his hands. Nothing to worry after that. With that firm faith, we should move forward. So that is one aspect of this verse where Lord Krishna is reciprocating with his devotees. The next aspect that I would like to talk about is the fact that, like Srila Prabhupada mentioned, that the Lord is a person. He is not impersonal. Another point actually that he mentioned in this verse is, let me bring out, that the Lord reciprocates. Why Srila Prabhupada brought out the impersonal aspect? Let's see that. Let's go through the purport. The reason he came to this point of impersonal, there are others who designate him as impersonal, and so the Lord also does not take any personal interest. So this is more or less one end of the spectrum from personal to impersonal. So at one end of the spectrum, the devotees associate or meditate on the Lord as a person, and they are in doing their bhajan and their activities as a act of devotion to the Lord. And the Lord reciprocates with them personally. On the other end of the spectrum, there are those who think of the Lord as impersonal and don't render any service. The Lord also doesn't take any personal interest in them. He lets their impersonal form of worship bring them to the realization that the Lord is personal, and then the Lord takes personal interest in them. So this is the other end. Now, in between, there are devotees who may not be pure devotees. So here Srila Prabhupada mentions that with his different types of admirers and devotees. So there could be those who are in deep love of the Lord, but there are those who have a lot of respect for the Lord. They may not have that level of love as the topmost devotees. They have respect for the Lord, they have awe and reverence for the Lord. So they are also devotees in the personal form, but not as the purest form of devotees. So this story that is shared by devotees, and I believe Srila Prabhupada also shared it. I can't remember exactly. I haven't read all the references, but where the Lord is having a headache and Narad Muni asks, I think it is Narad Muni, that what will relieve your headache? So he's having a transcendental headache, and he says, I want the dust from the feet of my devotees. If you can get me some of that and I'll put it on my head, my headache will go away. So Narad Muni goes first to Brahmaji, says he's a devotee of the great devotee of the Lord. He will surely have some dust on his feet. And anyway, he's sitting in the material world. where there is some dust. Might be hard to find dust in spiritual world. So he goes to Brahmaji, and Brahmaji says, how can I give the dust from my feet? I can give you lotus flowers. I can give you, whatever else, gold and jewels and flowers and nectar. The dust from my feet I cannot give, because I will attract a lot of sinful reaction. It's not the nice thing to do. So maybe you are just making it up. The Lord really doesn't want the dust, and you are trying to put me in trouble, because Narad Muni is kind of known to play tricks. So he does not give the dust, because he is afraid that this will attract sinful reaction. So even though Brahmaji, being a devotee, is not at the level where he is willing to even become a sinful person, if that pleases the Lord. That is the point. Same thing happens when he goes to Lord Shiva. He also doesn't give the dust. But when Narad Muni finally goes to the gopis, they say, take as much dust. They make more dust. They rub dust on their feet and they say, here, take. If this can relieve the headache of my Lord Shri Krishna, then we are ready to go to hell. So that is the highest level of devotion, of love for the Lord. It doesn't mean at all by any measure that Brahmaji or Lord Shiva are not devotees, but there is some distinction, as we can see through this story. So the Lord reciprocates. There are various levels of devotees, and look at ourselves. Look at me. I have no such devotion, and so I'm probably at whatever. But I firmly believe that the Lord is a person. I would, how much I believe in the Lord himself is questionable, but between personal and impersonal, I have no doubt, by mercy of Srila Prabhupada and all the scriptures that I have read with the right interpretation. So there's all levels of devotees, lowest like me, and then highest like Lord Shiva, and topmost being the gopis, and everybody in between, and the Lord reciprocates accordingly. So there is this aspect of the Lord's reciprocation which is proportional. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. So this is showing sort of that proportionality. It is not just, this verse is not just showing the reciprocation. The other verses that we discussed, the Chaturshloki and the 12.6 and 7, is direct 100% reciprocation from both sides, because those verses were talking about pure devotees. So the devotees submit themselves 100%. The Lord reciprocates 100%. So they are only reciprocation verses. This 4.11, ye yatha mam prapadyante, is a proportionality verse, not just reciprocation, but reciprocation in proportionality. And that is where all the rest of the devotees who are not at the highest level, not Shuddha Bhakta, they also get reciprocation, but in the proportion to which they surrender. So that is the meaning of that verse. Then on the very end of the spectrum come the impersonalists, which is what Srila Prabhupada is talking about here as the last one. There are others who designate him as impersonal, and so the Lord also does not take any personal interest in them. So there are many people who are impersonalists, who think that the Lord is not a person. Now, within the impersonalists also, there are two categories. They may think that the Lord's form, which is the Bhagavan form, the personal form, is fully spiritual, but the source of it is the impersonal Brahman. But the form of the Lord is still fully spiritual, but it has a source. So they are known as, or they may not know of the form of the Lord at all, They just worship the impersonal Brahman. They are called Brahmavadis. However, there are those who consider the form of the Lord as material, which means it is contaminated by matter or Maya. So they are called Mayavadis, who consider that the form of the Lord not only is not the topmost, not only it is, they consider that the Brahman is the source of the material of the form, but that the form is contaminated with matter. And therefore it is meant for the material world. It has no place in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, the Lord does not exist at all as that person. So that more or less equates the Lord to somebody in the material world. A very good person, if you're talking about Lord Ramachandra, then very ethical, moral person. Lord Krishna, a little bit sketchy, he told some lies and did some things. And all these thoughts become more valid in those sense. And that is when their offense begins to increase towards the Lord. And their offense to the Lord increase, and their self-evaluation of themselves also increases. One day I can become God. If I become a very good moral person, do all the good things. So the Lord is like, up there, yes, very moral, very high, but he sometimes does these bad things like speaking lies or, stealing butter, all those things, stealing and all that. So the Lord is kind of degrading himself. And if I can upgrade myself by being a good person, I can become God. That is the whole Mayavadi concept, the impersonal concept. And they are doomed because they are highly offensive of the Lord. And more than that, they are offensive to the devotees of the Lord who consider the Lord, the personal form of the Lord, as the topmost. And they go and offend them. They go and create disturbances and so on. And the Lord, that does not end well for such people. So let me stop here. It's 8:55. Are there any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much for a wonderful lecture this morning. I have a question on the Mayavadi aspect you just mentioned, right? If I'm just trying to understand, why did God create this Mayavadi philosophy and then essentially ensure that now this gets spread across quite a bit? If that is not correct understanding, why should there be a reason for?
God never created the Mayavadi concept, only the Brahmavadi concept.
Is Shankaracharya is a Mayavadi?
Brahmavadi, his personal or his, if you read his teachings, it's not Mayavadism. If you really go deep into it, it's not, Shankaracharya is not teaching Mayavadi concept. He is teaching the Brahmavad concept. He is not talking about the personal form. That is my understanding. I, of course, have not read fully about what Shankaracharya has written. And Srila Prabhupada many times, I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, he has mentioned that the followers of Shankaracharya, and many times probably the Adi Shankaracharya himself, as promoting Mayavadi philosophy, but I have not directly read his aspects of Mayavadi philosophy. At the same time, Srila Prabhupada at many places shows a lot of respect for Adi Shankaracharya as well, and sometimes uses his commentaries to, augment his own commentaries. So, of course, Adi Shankaracharya has a very important place in our tradition, in our philosophy. So it, I don't want to with I don't want to speculate on that, but I can say that there are instances in the scriptures. For example, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a conversation between Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, where the Lord says that, I'm waiting to go down to the material world as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Lord Chaitanya. But for that, I want the Mayavadi philosophy to become more prominent, so that I can go on the pretext of explaining the correct philosophy of bhakti to everyone. So Lord Vishnu asks Lord Shiva to go into the material world and promote the impersonal philosophy a little bit, accelerate it. And Lord Shiva agrees and comes down as Adi Shankaracharya. He's considered an avatar of Lord Shiva and promotes that. So that is one understanding that we get from Chaitanya Charitamrita, to get some background or some insight into why he did that, to basically set the backdrop for the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. However, the way to understand this would be, I'm not recommending by any means that one goes and starts investigating into the literature written by Adi Shankaracharya or all that, because he may have written something. As you know, the translations and commentaries would be written by somebody else, because they would be in English. Unless you can directly read the Sanskrit, then you are relying on somebody's commentaries and translations, and they could be heavily, twisted and turned into a pure Mayavadi understanding. Just like Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has spoken, but there are all ranges of translations and commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, from the most impersonalist, most materialistic also, how to become rich from Bhagavad Gita. There are people who have written commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, how to become rich, which is purely material, to impersonal, to as it is, which is the as it is understanding, the real understanding. So I'm by no means saying that you should go and investigate, because it could, contaminate your mind. It could deviate one's consciousness. Even if one is a very high Sanskrit scholar and somehow has access to the original texts of Adi Shankaracharya, that also is questionable. Adi Shankaracharya was in about, I think, 800 or BC, AD or so, about 1000 plus years, 1200 years ago. And how do you get access to the original work that he wrote? And somehow, if you're able to, then, to understand, interpret that correctly, we can see what exactly he has written. But only qualified people should be able to do that, such that it doesn't disturb their own understanding. So we can go by Srila Prabhupada's understanding that he has given, that yes, maybe he has mentioned that somewhere, but the fundamental, so let's not talk about Adi Shankaracharya. I want to leave him out for a second. Your other part of the question was why this is becoming so popular, why it became so prominent. That part I can answer very clearly. Whether the source of that and how much of the source of that was Adi Shankaracharya, I want to leave it out, because I don't want to unknowingly or knowingly cause any offense to Adi Shankaracharya. I have a lot of respect for him. The reason why one would accept or find that philosophy very acceptable or very want to adopt it is because it fuels one's, in some sense, it fuels one's sense gratification. And that is what we are programmed to do from millions and millions of lives. We want to gratify our senses. And the sense gratification that is there is that I can become God. Like I was just explaining. Who doesn't want to become God? Everybody is trying to become God. Little gods, God of our family. Somebody is trying to become God of Twitter. Somebody is trying to become God of a country. All these people are trying to become gods. So Mayavadi philosophy is the perfect philosophy. You can become the God of everything. And therefore it appeals to one's sense gratification, taste. And, people adopt it. There is no concept of surrendering. There is no concept of asking for help. the verse that we saw today, 12.7, Tesham aham samuddharta. So I am the deliverer of. So you have to surrender to the Lord and request, please save me. You have to acknowledge your weakness. I cannot save myself. You please save me. That is a very, very big impact on people's ego, which they are not willing to do. They think everybody wants to do everything based on their own strength. And Mayavad philosophy says, okay, you on your own strength, you can try to do it, and you don't need any help, no need to surrender to anybody. And with your own strength, one day you can become God. So people like that concept, they like that promise. They start walking, they never reach the end. But at least in the beginning, there is no promise or there is no commitment for them that some point or the other you will have to surrender yourself. And therefore their ego, their ahankar is not impacted, and they happily take to that path, but they reach nowhere. Did I address most of the aspects of your question, or was there some aspect which was there and you're still kind of inquisitive about it?
I think you addressed it, Prabhuji. In fact, while you are discussing, the question I had previously that didn't ask also kind of got explained. I was just thinking,
Which one?
why? I was just thinking, why so much confusion? Why can't you just make it simple and just give one way for everybody to follow? But again, I was thinking the answer I got is that, look, maybe you can just validate my understanding. That look, everybody has their different ways of looking at it, and then different karma, right? So just like the variety we have in the world, right? Why can't all flowers be rose? I mean, so there are so many different flowers to attract the attentions of everybody based on their own positioning. Similarly, same is the case with the food, anything, right? That there is a lot of variety in the world. Similarly, just from the spiritual standpoint or from the development standpoint, there are different paths that have been available. While perhaps there is only one path of all these things that is really the right path, just to cater to the people's needs. Maybe that's why God has created so much of variety in this thing as well. Yeah.
Correct. You bring out another point, actually, which I did not mention. So thank you for bringing it out. Or at least let me put it in my words, something to add to what I said, which I did not say earlier, is that people are of all types and all mentalities. Somebody is not ready to surrender. Somebody wants something, a path in which surrender is not needed, to sort of, which they may treat as an appearance of weakness. I want to do it by my strength. The Lord has provided a way for them as well. And with the provision built into that method, that once they start walking on that method where there is no requirement for any surrender, there is some sense gratification that is also included in it. You can become God, basically, something like that. They will start walking on that path, and quickly they will realize that this is very hard, very impractical. And then they will come in contact with a devotee and they will switch to the personal path. So at least they will try to get away from gross materialism and try to go towards something that is in the spiritual direction. And so they will become, at least they will come to the mode of goodness. Even in Mayavadism, you have to come to the mode of goodness. That is a given. So at least people are coming out of the mode of ignorance and passion, trying to become good people, trying to go towards the spiritual direction, and then they can switch the path and hopefully go on the personal path. So that is another advantage of taking on the impersonal path. At least you are going in the right direction, in the sense of away from gross materialism. I think that's what also you are bringing out. That
absolutely. Prabhuji. Thank you for it.
Great. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. So we can close here. Thank you for joining the class, and we will see you all at the temple at the Sunday feast today. Thank you so much. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। हरे कृष्णा।